heard a lot from our public health officer lately. And for some of you, you might not even known that they existed before COVID happened. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Then we're going to talk about COVID antibody testing and vaccine research. Those are all things that everybody is hearing a lot of these days. And so we're going to learn a little bit more about what that actually means and what does that look like. Then we're going to talk to some of our essential workers and how their job changed from pre-COVID to now, and what are the things that we're doing differently. Um, then we're going to talk a little bit about what we can do to take care of ourselves besides, washing our hands and things like that, those physical things. We're going to, we have Sierra is on to talk about things that we can do to take care of ourselves, whether it's going for a run or meditation or whatever that looks like to you. And then we're going to talk about masks. That's other things that we have learned a lot about recently. So we're going to talk about the different type of masks, and then we're going to learn how to make one. And then at the very end, we're going to wrap up letting you know what are the last 2 steps that you need to do to complete the badge, and then ordering information, right? So today we are just helping you fulfill some of the steps for the badge. The event does not include the badge. So your troop leader or your parent will need to order that badge for you. So we'll talk about that. Okay, so who do we have talking today, right? Because you guys listen to us all the time and we are not the experts here. So the first speaker that we're gonna have, we have Dr. Karen Millman, who is a master's in public health. She's the current CEO of Redwood Community Health Coalition, and she's our former public health officer here in Sonoma County. So we're really lucky to have her on today. So Karen, thank you so much for taking time. Then we have Anna Lujan, who works for Twist Bioscience in their biopharma team. And she's the one who's going to talk about vaccine development and the antibodies. So the really awesome sciencey things around those. It's pretty cool. Then we have some really awesome community members. We have Ida Schwitters, who's assistant team lead manager at Rayleigh. She's going to talk about what her job has been like. Then we have Amanda Satter, who's the cafeteria assistant at Valley Vista Elementary School. We have Marie Wainglass Bates, who is a mail carrier for our postal service. So what are the things that she's been doing during this time frame? And last, we have Sierra Dater, who is a licensed clinical social worker and will be talking to us about our self-care stuff. Right? All right. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to watch a very short video about COVID. So give me 2 seconds. I want to share computer sound. And then Jen, if you could give me a thumbs up that you have my sound as soon as we start playing.
Nothing like an early morning jog. Phew. What? Oh, stop it. Dear Tim and Moby, I've been hearing lots of scary stuff in the news about the coronavirus. Can you tell me more about it, please? Thanks, Khalil. Sure thing, Khalil. Viruses are tiny particles that can invade living cells. There are millions of varieties with different behaviors, shapes, and structures. Coronaviruses are one group, named for their crown-shaped outline. 4 of these commonly infect humans. A lot of times when you get a cold, it's caused by a coronavirus. Any virus has one goal: to replicate or make more copies of itself. But it can't do that on its own, so it invades an organism and turns its cells into virus factories. This can be unpleasant for the host, the organism that the virus has infected. The new coronavirus typically causes coughing and fever. A healthy body can usually fight off this illness, known as COVID-19, on its own. Symptoms are mild for most people, especially kids. But in a body with weakened defenses, COVID-19 can become more severe and require medical treatment. Some people get seriously ill, and that's gotten everyone's attention. This new coronavirus was first identified in Wuhan, China. In late 2019, there was an outbreak. That's when a disease starts spreading. More and more people got sick, first in China and then around the world. Entire cities have been quarantined or closed off to slow the disease's spread. Fortunately, viruses can't get around without our help. And there's a lot we can do to not help them. Like washing your hands, especially after you use the bathroom and before you eat. That's always a good idea, and you probably already do it. Scrub with soap for at least 20 seconds to make sure you don't miss any spots. Whenever you cough or sneeze, cover your nose and mouth to help keep any germs contained. And if you're sick, avoid other people. You wouldn't want to infect them, even if it's a plain old cold. Well, when there's an outbreak where you live, experts recommend some added precautions. Like social distancing, limiting close contact with other people, even if you're not sick. Hang out at home with your family, and keep up with your friends online. That gives the virus fewer opportunities to spread around. Lots of outbreaks have been stopped when enough folks just follow these simple rules. Yeah, it's true. Some people have died after being infected by the 2019 coronavirus. That's because the virus can infect a person's lungs and make it hard to breathe. Those are the stories we hear about most online and in the news. But the vast majority of cases have been mild. If you feel overwhelmed by the news, consider limiting how much you let in. Instead of cable news and social media, stick to sources like the World Health Organization. They'll give you the big picture, not just the scary snapshots that make the headlines. And they're organizing experts all over the world to get this coronavirus under control. Still, it's totally normal if the situation's made you a little anxious. Talk to a trusted adult. They can help you put your feelings in perspective. One last thing. Coronavirus doesn't care where you're from or what your background is. So don't let anyone turn this into an excuse to target someone based on how they look. Working together is how we'll beat this thing, so let's stand up for our neighbors. Okay, I'm a sweaty mess. I gotta rinse off. Oh, don't be so dramatic. Where are you going? I really think you're overreacting.
Okay. So that gave you just a little bit more information about it. And so I'm going to stop sharing so that we can pin Karen. So Karen, again, we have Dr. Karen Millman on, and she's going to talk to us about public health and what does it do and how do we control diseases. So take it away.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right. It's always a little hard to tell. I'm used to having headsets on. So hi, I'm Karen, and I'm a physician who specializes in public health. And I was asked to talk to you a little bit about what does your local public health department do? So public health departments are sort of like your individual doctor, where instead of thinking about how do we treat you as one person, we think about how do we treat the entire community. So what are the issues and challenges to health, not just for one person, but everyone around them. So health departments look at all kinds of aspects, like they're the ones who do the restaurant inspections to make sure that the food you eat has been cooked at the right temperature to keep you healthy, or they make sure your water is safe. But one of the things that they also really do is focus on how do we prevent diseases from spreading. And these are diseases that spread either because of their things that might be caused by something in the virus, the community, like a virus that's spreading, or things like trying to get people to eat healthy and exercise to prevent the spread of diseases like diabetes. So specifically, I was asked to talk to you about disease control. So disease control is something that your local health departments do. It's sort of like being a detective. So when you get sick, if you as an individual get sick and you go to the doctor and your doctor diagnoses a certain type of illness like coronavirus or measles, or even something like salmonella, something that you get from eating something that makes you ill, your doctor then calls the health department, or the lab that does the test calls the health department. And the health department's job is to step in and make sure that you are not spreading it to anyone else. So again, they're thinking about how do we protect the most people in the community. So the health department will then call you up on the phone, or they may come visit you, depends on what it is. And they'll say, hi, I've heard you've been sick. Tell me about when you got sick, how you got sick if you know, and who you've been in contact with. And then they go and figure out what was the period of time before you got sick or after you got sick that you might have exposed someone else. And they get the list of everyone that you might have been around and where you may have been. So if you went to Disney World, or if you just went to the grocery store, or you went to your cousin's house for dinner 2 weeks ago, they get the names of all of those people. And then they call them up and they say, hey, you might have been exposed to this disease. We want to figure out if you've been exposed, if you need treatment, or if you might be at risk of exposing someone else. And if they think you're at risk of exposing someone else, then they counsel you and say, here are the things that we recommend you do. You're pretty familiar with those nowadays because we've been hearing about it in the news. Like mostly we say you should stay home and not go out and about and not go to stores and not go to school. But that's sort of relatively new to the awareness of most of the people in our community for coronavirus. So our health department is now saying, okay, if we identify that you have coronavirus, they're trying to track down anyone you might have been around and then encourage those people to get tested and to stay at home until they make sure that they're not sick. The health department also then has put into place other rules that they've come up with because it's so hard to track something like coronavirus where if you went to one place and there were a lot of other people around you. So that's one of these reasons why we have these requests that we shelter in place, is because it's a lot easier to spread a disease when you're around a lot of other people at once. And so what the health department will say is we think that people should stay in small groups and stay at home and not go out because we want to make sure have time to find everyone who could be infected and get them to isolate so that way we can prevent the spread. And you can't do that if it's everyone is out and about. These requirements for us to stay home were based on how do we make it so that the health department can actually do its job and find everyone who might be sick and help contain it. The other part of wanting to do that is also to try to prevent a lot of people from getting sick at once, because then that means that there isn't enough time in the doctor's day to manage to treat everybody. And so the idea is that if you can slow the spread of disease, not only do you prevent people from getting ill, you're also making it so that if they do get ill, there's a better way to give them medical care that they need. And so now that they've managed to get testing available and are able to really better understand where people are who are sick, and they've ramped up and have more people available to help them with what's called contact tracing, which is what I just explained to you, finding everyone. Now they're thinking that it's getting easier and easier to what we're calling reopening and to lift some of the restrictions, because they know that they have the capabilities in place that if people do get sick, to be able to find them all and to help encourage them all to stay home. So that's sort of what your health department is doing. They're really looking through what is the research, what do we know about the science, and how do we find everyone who is sick and help them know how to stay home, help them get better, and help them prevent spreading the disease from others. It can be a little confusing because this is a new virus, and so people are learning, just like you're learning about the virus today. All the scientists in the world are learning about this virus right now. And so things change because what we do is we do very thoughtful studies, we evaluate what evidence there is, and as we learn new things, we change the rules to try to adjust what we can to help prevent the spread. And so that's why you may be hearing things change from over a couple of weeks. That last 6 weeks ago we thought that this was the best practice, but now we've learned that this might affect people differently. And so that's, again, you just have to understand that there's a lot of learning going on, not just with you, but with everybody for that. Now, I think there were some questions you wanted me to answer. Do you want me to, do you want to save them till later, or, and I'm going to talk later about how the disease spread when I talk about masks and explain about how masks work.
That's perfect. If you have a couple of the questions that were pre-submitted that you feel comfortable answering, go right ahead. Now is a good time.
Sure. So I was asked, how does the public health team decide what are the right safety rules should be, and then how do they manage when people disagree? So this is tough, particularly when things are new and we're learning. So the health department decides what the rules should be based on what they can decide is the best science behind it. So they look at it and they say, okay, if we know that the virus spreads in this way, then this is what we know might work to prevent it from spreading. So for example, there are some viruses that we know spread through eating and drinking, and there's some viruses that we know spread more through coughing, sneezing, and talking. And so they cater and they change the rules based, what they recommend based on what they've learned for that. And they're constantly doing studies, talking with experts across the world, looking at what's happening in China, what's happening in Italy, and trying to learn from all of that. It is a challenge when they have people who disagree, because not everybody either wants to believe in what the science says, or there are people who feel like that they might not be at the same risk and they want to do their own thing. The health department's job is really to try to educate people and to say, here's what we know, here's what the science is, here's what our rules are, and to try to persuade people to agree. And when they have problems with that, then again, that's where other aspects of our government and the community comes into effect. And this is actually where you can all have a role too, of helping to help spread the information so that everyone understands why the different rules are created. I think we're going to talk about antibodies and vaccine development, so I'll skip that question. And then I guess there was the other question is, when will things open again? So I thought I would try to answer that one and let you know that this is going to be a changing situation. And so, the best way to deal with it is to be flexible. So our state health department has come up with a list of criteria that say, if we can get to this point, we think it's safe, or we have enough services that are available to help reopen. And you've seen across our county, we've slowly reopened. So at first it was everyone stay home. And now we're saying, okay, you can open some more businesses. And then next we're saying, well, it might be okay to eat outside and have outdoor restaurants. And that's gradually changing. So the criteria for that, they're actually on the state health department and the county health department websites. There are things like, how busy are our hospitals? Because if someone gets sick, we want to make sure there's a bed available for them if they need to go into the hospital. And so that's sort of the ripple effect of what we do. It's when it's safe, when we think that it's relatively safe for a person to go outside, and we think it won't harm the healthcare system, so that if something does happen, people can get care. So that requires constant monitoring. So we're constantly looking at how many people have been tested, how many people are ill, how many people are in the hospital, how many people are anywhere. And so they're looking at that data, and every week they're making new decisions. I think right now what we're going to see for the next couple of weeks is more and more things are going to be reopened. But we have to keep in mind that when more and more people go out and about and do things, that also increases the risk of virus spread. And so it is possible that as more people are doing things, that more people will get sick, and then we go back to that constantly looking at the data, and we may actually have to say, okay, last week you could go to a movie theater, but now for a couple more weeks we need to shut down the movie theaters, and then go back and forth. And so they're going to have to make the decisions based on that. And I think that that is a challenge for people to understand why it's going to move around, but it's like anything else. The weather changes, the situation with how the virus is spreading changes. So I think I will pause, because I think that's my time limit, and turn it over to you to talk about vaccines and antibody testing.
Awesome. Thank you so very much, Karen. So next up we have Anna. And Anna, let me share your slides, and then you just let me know when you're ready to move on.
Okay, awesome. Hi guys, my name is Anna, and I graduated from Penn 2 years ago. I majored in biochemistry and biophysics, so you guys could say that I'm pretty nerdy. Today I'll be talking a little bit about what DNA is, what proteins are, how they're made, and then I'll talk about antibodies, vaccines, and the role that my company is playing right now in fighting the disease. So my company is a biotech company actually here in South San Francisco. It's called Twist Bioscience, and we do a bunch of really cool science stuff, but the main thing, or the foundation of our company, was DNA synthesis. So you probably have heard in your science classes or from your biology teachers that every living thing is encoded by DNA. DNA basically kind of provides the recipe, or like the code, to tell all the building blocks of life how to assemble and how to form people. So DNA kind of looks like this structure in yellow. It's double-stranded and has a helical shape, and it has a little twist. That's why my company is called Twist. It is made up of 4 different chemicals, A, T, C's, and G's. And my company actually found a really cool way to make DNA actually by printing it. So like you have in your house, you have printers, they have different colored ink. At our company, our ink is actually just DNA. So our different colors are actually different bases. So we're able to print massive amounts of DNA really fast and for cheap. And this is really important for research and for scientists because starting from DNA, we're able to make the proteins that are involved in different diseases and to study them and learn better. So next slide. So my specific team at Biopharma, or at Twist, is protein sciences. So what we mostly make is our antibodies, which are a type of protein. So what are proteins? To understand what proteins are, it is also important to understand that there's these things called amino acids. They kind of look like jelly beans in this little PowerPoint on the right. There's around 20 different amino acids, and they work kind of like Legos. They can assemble into like infinite number of structures. When they assemble together, they form proteins. And when proteins assemble together, they form cells. And when cells assemble together, they form tissue. And when tissues assemble together, they form organs. So that kind of makes it easier to visualize how you can go from DNA, like A, T, C, and G, into a whole person, a dog, or a bird, etc. On the left is a diagram of how we make proteins inside our cells. Our cells have this nucleus, which is in blue, that is basically where DNA is stored. I'll go back, where DNA is stored in our cells. This DNA unfolds, and we have an RNA polymerase make a different type of molecule, the middle step called RNA, and then the RNA comes into the cytoplasm that has all the different jelly beans or amino acids, and it forms different proteins. It basically tells the DNA basically tells the protein factory how to assemble the different parts of the protein together. So on the next slide, we'll talk about the specific protein called an antibody. So this antibody has like a Y shape. It looks like this. It has two arms and a constant region. These two arms are really important in binding viruses or disease. They're specific. So every antibody is specific to a specific target or like a different type of virus. In our cell, we actually are able to print DNA that codes for antibodies and test a bunch of these antibodies against different targets. Lately, we've been working a lot on coronavirus. Antibodies are really important for our immune system because they work with other cells in our body to fight off disease. They're basically the proteins that find an invader and tell other cells in our body that we need to destroy this threat and so that we don't get sick. So we can go to the next slide. So there's two main therapeutics around. You probably have heard a lot around about vaccines and about antibodies. Vaccines kind of work like our immune system. We actually get injected with a little bit of virus or a little bit of antigen that is in a less dangerous form or a small fragment of it. And this vaccine actually will cause our body to start an immune response. Basically, within us, we have all these different antibody options that our body starts testing against the antigen, and it will eventually find an antibody that works against the target, and it starts building defenses. So pretty much it's like soldiers. We have soldiers ready to fight when the real virus comes. There's another way that people can, so this gives you immunity so the next time that you're exposed to the virus, your body will be ready to fight it and you won't get as sick or you will get less sick. There's also another type of drug called an antibody. So this is basically when instead of your body coming up with its own antibody to fight the disease, scientists around the world find an antibody and synthesize it outside of the body, test it, and the only thing that you would have to do is take the antibody and you won't be sick anymore. So next slide. So scientists, as Jen mentioned before, have been trying to figure out how coronavirus works and how it infects our cells. Right now, scientists actually found the receptor that it binds. So as we saw in the video in the beginning, viruses cannot live alone. If you leave them alone, they will eventually die. So they need to enter our cells to be able to replicate and to cause infection. So the coronavirus has spikes, as you've seen, and the way that it gets into our body is by attaching to a receptor in our cells called ACE2. So then antibodies can help us prevent infection in one of two ways. One, by binding to the ACE2 receptor and blocking the virus from entering the cell, or by binding to the spikes of the protein and preventing it from entering our cells and causing disease. Next. So actually, our company has been working really hard these past 2 months into finding different antibodies that can successfully recognize the proteins involved in the coronavirus. And our leads currently have two applications. One, they can become therapeutics, which is basically synthetic antibodies that people can take as medicines to fight off coronavirus. And another very important application is diagnostic testing. So next slide, we can go to the next slide. diagnostic tests are very important because this is basically the reason why we are isolating right now. Because technically, if every person that was sick knew that they were sick and they were stayed at home, they wouldn't be able to spread the virus to any other healthy person, and the pandemic would eventually end. The problem that we have now is that the test that we have, you basically have to go to the doctor. And since so many people are asymptomatic, they don't have symptoms, or the symptoms are pretty mild, they don't really get tested, so they don't know if they're sick. So right now, there's also invasive ways to know that you're sick. So basically, they need to take your blood and then check whether you have antibodies against the virus. That means that you're immune and that you won't get sick. But Twist is working on making an easy at-home test that everybody can take to know whether or not they're sick, so they can isolate and protect other people. So that's kind of a very quick overview of what Twist has been doing, vaccines and tests. Hope you guys learned something. And I hope you guys get interested in science because it's really cool.
That was awesome. Thank you so much, Anna. Jen, did any questions pop in the chat at all during the talk?
We had a question, and I think it would be probably good for both Karen and Anna, is asking, so if somebody's getting tested tomorrow, right, and I guess more, how long does that test last? Because just because you're showing up as negative now doesn't mean you'll be negative tomorrow or next week. So how often would you need to take a test in order to protect people?
You want me to answer that one?
Yeah, go ahead.
So the main testing that's being done right now is a test to determine if you're actively infected, as opposed to the antibody tests that tell you whether or not you have been infected in the past and have been immune. And whoever asked your question is exactly correct. That tells you at the moment you were tested, are you infected and are you not infected? The challenge is that it doesn't tell you that you could be exposed to someone tomorrow and get sick again, or you could have actually been infected but not yet be sick. And so what happens is the virus replicates in your body, and it may not have replicated enough that the test can detect it yet. Yeah. And so all the tests can tell you is that at the time you were tested, you were negative. So negative tests are helpful to know, but they're not as useful to know as a positive test. A positive test is really what we need to know, because then we know you are sick. We're working on additional testing, but that is one of the challenges that happens right now.
Yeah, that was a great question.
Great, thank you so much. Jen, any more, or was that it? That was it. Okay, great. Well, thank you so very much, Karen and Anna. And we'll talk to you guys again in just a little bit. So right now, I'd like to introduce Marie Wadesglass Bates, who is a mail carrier with the United States Postal Service. And so welcome, thank you. She's gonna talk to us about what does her job look like now, and how has it changed from pre-COVID to peri-COVID now? So welcome, Marie, and thank you so much for taking your time today.
No problem. I think I'm across the country from you guys. I'm in Baltimore, Maryland. So it's 7-something here. So anyway, life has been extremely crazy. So the United States Postal Service is very, very essential, and I don't think that people realized how essential we were until the coronavirus hit. We have been delivering medicines, we have been delivering unemployment papers, we have been delivering unemployment checks and money. We deliver lots of toilet paper. A lot of people are using Target and Amazon for all of their needs. People are sending care packages to their family. Maybe somebody is stuck somewhere and their medicine has come to their house, say here, and they have family in California, so they're sending it to California. So I think that people don't realize how essential we truly are. And I never knew how truly essential we were. And I've been carrying mail for 25 years. So this has been definitely crazy times. We've delivered mail in a lot of different weather, but never a virus situation like this. So it's been interesting. We did actually mid-April, we found out we had a positive case at our office, and we had a couple of carriers out already because they were taking care of maybe elderly parents or immune compromised children. So we were short, and then we found out on a Friday that we had a positive case, which was one of our supervisors, and we had 22 sick calls the next day. So we absolutely did everything in our power to make sure that all of our mail got out, all of our packages were still getting out. It was 13 straight days before I had a day off. And 1 week it was 84 hours. So I do 40 hours a week on a good week. And then, so my time was doubled. But I got to tell you, our customers are normal for us to be able to be out in the community, and we're normal for them. When they see us, they know that everything is okay, semi okay in the world when they see us coming through, because we are, continuing in our operations and keeping things flowing. And I have some of the best customers. They leave bottles of water. Some will leave me lunch money in a card. I had a customer that donated some money to me to give to my coworkers at work. She wanted to buy everybody an individually wrapped treat, so I gave it to my boss because she was already doing treat bags for us. So I gave it towards that, because there are 140 of us, so it helped towards the cost. I've had people leave me bags of fruit, just notes saying thank you for all that you're doing. So while the coronavirus has kind of separated, people from everybody, it also has brought people together. People will see us riding around, and now, especially because everybody's wearing masks, I don't really recognize people. So everybody just throws up a wave, and you just smile behind your mask and wave, and you just, you're just trying to be friendlier, because everybody, we're all in this together. So yeah. Does anybody have any questions for me?
How has your job changed? I think that's probably one of the biggest things. Like, what is like the top 3 things that has made that COVID has changed for you in your job, besides lots of hours?
So more parcels. So we have more parcels than Christmas time, and Christmas time is a lot of parcels. So like I said, we deliver a lot of essential stuff. The weird thing is some customers will walk up to me and take a package of mail out of my hands, and then other people will come out in like beekeeper suits, like completely like, or not even, they'll shut their blinds if they see me coming. So that's kind of weird too. It's like, and I'll get, like, if I have to go into, there's a lot of our resources, like our restrooms. We don't have a lot of options on the street to use the bathroom now. And I have a customer, and the customer, I guess you can see the picture on the right with the dog. I always go in her house for my bathroom break, and I can't do that now. So my resources, are very limited. And if I walk into the grocery store and people see my uniform, they automatically look at me like I'm the walking virus. So I get dirty looks being in a carrier uniform. But then again, like I said, you also get the friendly waves and stuff like that. So, but yeah, and then at work inside the office, there's a lot of us in there. So trying to keep your distance and still do your job effectively, that's kind of different. But wearing a mask is also difficult inside of a building for 3 hours nonstop too. So it's nice to get outside and take the mask off, and so.
Excellent. Well, thank you so very much. And Jen, did any questions come over chat for Marie?
One question was asking, and I see there's probably a few people on here that could probably answer this, is how do you wear your mask and not get your glasses fogged up?
I think we'll cover that when we get to the mask section. I have experience with that, as does Karen. So we'll cover that when we get to the mask section. So excellent. Thank you so very much, Marie. We really appreciate you tuning in all the way from the East Coast. So that's great. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Okay, so next up, we have Amanda, who is a cafeteria assistant at Valley Vista. So we can pin her if we can find her. Amanda, you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Can you hear me now?
We can.
All
There
right.
you
So
are.
I am a cafeteria assistant at Valley Vista Elementary School, which is part of Petaluma City Schools. So as many of you guys know, when the schools closed, we had to figure out how we were going to provide breakfast and lunch to kids in Petaluma. There are a lot of kids that depend on the lunch and the breakfast they receive at school. And especially now with a lot of parents possibly being laid off and things just being crazy, it was extra important for us to make sure the kids were getting fed. So what we did, as some of you guys may know, we split into 2 different locations at Petaluma Junior High and McDowell, and we made up little bag lunches and breakfasts for kids. So one of the struggles we had to deal with is we wanted to make sure that the kids didn't have to come out 5 days a week to get their breakfast and lunch. That's a lot of exposure. A lot of people aren't comfortable with that, and it wasn't necessary. So what we did is we worked on distributing just 2 days a week. So for example, on Monday, they would pick up their breakfast and lunch for Monday, Tuesday, and Friday, and then they would come back on Thursday to get Thursday and Friday. So that's one of the things that we did. And one of the things for me personally, I had to work with a whole new schedule. So I was used to going to one place, and now I went to a different place with all new coworkers. And of course, we're all wearing masks and gloves, and it was just a real different kind of experience. But I was really glad to do it because it was, personally, I really enjoyed seeing a lot of the students come through our little drive-through. You would come through the drive-through to get your lunch and breakfast, and we would hand it in the cars. And it was really nice to see some of the students. And then as the weeks went on, we got to see some of the same students over and over again. And everybody was always very thankful and very polite. So that was a really unique experience. And then one of the things that just shows how different it was, for example, some people would open their trunks, and then we would have to close their trunks after we put their lunch in. And then you would have to immediately go change your gloves, because after you touch their trunk with your gloves, you just needed a new pair. So those were different little hurdles that we had to work with and adapt to. And of course, right now we're not doing lunch anymore because we officially stopped for the summer. But one of the things that they'll have to come up with for the new school year is how will we still serve breakfast and lunch when school starts? Because as many of you know, often there can be a whole group of kids in the lunchroom at one time coming through the lunch line in a very small area. So that's going to be one of the things that we're going to have to figure out for the new school year. How are we going to do that? I don't think they really know the answer to that yet. I think they're working on that, but that's definitely going to be something that will be changed in the future. So yeah, that's what I did for the past 3 months. So it ended up being a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed it. And hopefully some of you kids got to come through and take advantage of the lunch and breakfast. And actually, one of the other things that we found was that it wasn't possible for all of the kids to come at the designated times. Either the parents were working or whatever the situation was. So we had to adapt, and we actually had some breakfast and lunch that went out on school buses to be delivered to those students that weren't able to come pick it up. So there were different ways. We had neighbors picking up for neighbors. The community just definitely came together to make sure that people who needed the food got the food. So that was good.
That's amazing. Thank you so very much, Amanda, for sharing your experience and doing all of that really good work to make sure that our friends and our family and our neighbors were fed during this time. So we really appreciate that. So thank you so much. Excellent. Okay, so next up, we're going to talk really quickly to Ida. And Ida, I hope I'm not going to screw up your last name, Ida Schwitters, who's assistant team manager at Rayleigh's here in town. So welcome. If you want to really cover how your job has changed and what it's looked like during COVID for you.
Yeah, it's been interesting. It's something that we weren't expecting. Nobody was, but as soon as we had the stay in place order, we were, dealing with a lot of what everybody's calling hoarding. A lot of things were going out of the store quicker than we can put them on the shelf. It was just going from working 40 hours, doubling our schedule. A lot of us were just working overtime just to, keep up with the demand of what everybody was looking for. I mean, Clorox wipes, hand sanitizer, baby wipes, yeast. To this day, we have a difficult time getting yeast in. Have multiple calls all the time. It was really heartbreaking at times having to tell people that they couldn't take more than the 2 items, or that we didn't have toilet paper. It's really hard to hear stories, and as a manager, I go and step in when my employees are uncomfortable or in a situation where a customer is angry or frustrated with them, and it's my job to kind of come in there and diffuse the situation, and it's really emotionally hard at times. So but it's, as a team at our store, we've all become very close. We like to change our mask, just to kind of keep, it's just little things that keep us in good spirits, because it has been so stressful. But the good thing that we've been doing, some of the things that we've been doing over at Rayleigh's, is we have came up with senior bags. So a lot of our seniors can't come to our stores, or they don't have anybody to deliver them to them. So we have senior bags. Well, not, they don't come to the stores, but we have senior bags available. So it's a very good, value for them. They have somebody who can pick it up. Or a family member usually would come and pick it up, and so they have food for the a week or 2 weeks, depending on what's going on. We also have food delivery, so that went up. We went from about 20 orders a day to about 80 orders. So that would be shopping for a large family. So we would be, a typical order for somebody could be about $150. We were all of a sudden going up to $300 to $400. And at the very beginning, it's kind of, come down a little bit. Another thing that we did, so we had the e-cart, we have the senior bags, and also the most important thing to me is being the cleaning marshal, is to make sure that our area is clean, sanitized, our employees and our customers are safe. We stop, make sure that all our employees are washing their hands. We have a little cleaning station up there at the registers that they can stop to go clean hands. They sanitize the belts, all the keypads, anything that somebody is going to touch. We make sure that we stop to sanitize. Our self-checkout station gets cleaned very often. We have to remind our customers to keep the 6-foot distance from between each other. Also with our employees, making sure we have some distance between us to make sure we're keeping each other safe. Many of you have seen the plexiglass shields that we have now. In almost every store you have those, and now even some of the restaurants are having those now. So we're just making sure our carts are cleaned and wiped. We sanitize those. We have sprayers, so we make sure our courtesy clerks are spraying that, making sure we have hand sanitizer for our customers, hand wipes for our customers. So it's been a real change in how this is my first experience in grocery business. So it's just been kind of overwhelming at times, but also satisfying, because it's like we know that we're helping a lot of people. We never thought of ourselves as being essential. We were just grocery workers, talking with our customers, making that connection, and we love that. We love seeing our customers coming in and letting us know how much they appreciate what we're doing. There's customers who are angry because we have to remind them to wear their mask. That is something that not everybody is used to. We as employees wear our mask all day long for 8 hours, and a lot of times in the break room, when we have other people in the break room with us, you'll see us when we walk out the door, start walking to our car, we're just like, oh, so helpful to take it off. My glasses, I totally understand that. But it's just a lot of stuff. Our team is blessed to be able to help everybody in our community. So it is, that pride that we have. And it is fun to even just, you know, have a cheer that we got, you know, more hand sanitizer in. So it's just the silly things like that just keeps us going. So yeah, it's any questions or?
Mute myself. I don't think so. I don't think we had any come in. Thank
Yeah,
you so very much,
no,
Ida,
not a
so
problem.
much
Thank you.
for your time today. That was really interesting, and thank you so much for all of the work that all of our essential workers do. If everybody wants to give a round of applause, thank you so very much. Okay, and next up, we have Sierra Dater, and she's going to talk a little bit, a couple of minutes on self-care and what does that look like? How do we take care of ourselves besides the things like washing our hands and covering our coughs and wearing masks and things like that? So Sierra, go ahead and take it away.
All right. Hi, everybody. Hi, wonderful Girl Scouts. And I'm really touched to hear everyone, all the speakers, all the things that they do. You know, I'm kind of immersed in my own world and my own family and the work that I do. And just to hear how everyone is contributing to our community is just awesome. So thank you, everybody. So my name is Sierra Dater. I'm a therapist, also known as a counselor, and I have a private practice here in Petaluma. And I also run a program called Wise Girl Workshops, which is a program for girls in 3rd through 8th grade. And it's focused on social, emotional, and physical learning. So I got asked to talk with you a little bit about self-care. And so the question is, what is self-care? And just take a moment to think, well, what does that mean? It might be kind of self-explanatory, or it might be kind of a new term. So it means something that we do to take care of all aspects of our health during times of stress. So oftentimes we might think of health just in terms of our bodies, but health is way more than just our bodies. It's also our mental health and our spiritual health, which I just tied into mental health as we talk a little bit today. So let's take a look at, actually next slide. And so when we take care of ourselves, when we do these things to optimize our physical and mental health, it improves our mood. And I think everybody likes to be in a good mood. So that's not to say that being in a bad mood or sad or things like that aren't okay. But we really, you know, it feels better to be in a good mood. So let's talk about physical health. And I think you'll just press the yes. Okay. So ways that we can care for our physical health. And if we can think of just sort of like our basic needs, that's where we need to start. So sleep, eat, shelter, food. I repeated that twice, but anyway, those are the places that we need to start, and from there we can build up. So here I have getting enough sleep, eating healthy foods, and I said follow the 80-20 rule, which means you know, you eat pretty healthy 80% of the time, and 20% you splurge a little. You get the ice cream, you get the snacks. Moving your body daily, that doesn't mean that you have to be an athlete. What that means is getting some form of exercise, be it walking, be it running, biking, swimming. It doesn't need to be like all at one time. If you've got access to a pool and you swim a little bit during the day and then you go out and you walk your dog, it doesn't have to be just like 20 minutes or an hour packed together. It can be varied. Keeping up good hygiene, which may sound simple in a lot of ways, but when we're out of our routine, that can be hard to manage a little bit. So washing our hands, brushing our teeth and hair, showering, getting dressed and out of your jammies is a way to take care of yourself. I imagine a lot of you like to be in your jammies. I know I do too. But that's going to probably limit us taking care of ourselves sometimes. Resting each day, so taking time to just like have some downtime is really good. Waking up at a reasonable hour, and I know that might be hard to do sometimes, but trying to get into a schedule, and talk a little bit about that. Get some sunshine, breathe, stretch, yoga, and then also to challenge yourself, okay? Because taking care of ourselves isn't all just about doing the easy stuff, it's about growing too. And we can challenge ourselves physically. So for example, like if you've got a walk that you usually go on with your family, well, maybe to add an extra 5 or 10 minutes, or to add some 10 push-ups, which I know push-ups are really hard, or even building on one of those 10 push-ups tomorrow, 11 push-ups the next day, just finding ways to challenge yourself physically. So let's take a look at the mental health piece. And mental health involves, look at that cute cat. Oh my gosh, and that dog, that's so cute. Anyway, doing things that you enjoy doing, challenging yourself as well. So learning something new, trying something new. Remember, a little side note here, we grow our brains through making mistakes and challenging ourselves. As everything is so easy, we don't grow our brains. So we really want to challenge ourselves mentally as well. Playing with pets, talking and spending time with friends, as well as family, and being that virtually, or maybe if you're having some social distance play dates. Limiting devices, I know that they can really draw us in. I am guilty of that as well. So maybe setting a timer for yourself, or having, saving them for the weekend and not so much during the week. Listening to music, read, art, positive self-talk, meaning the way that we talk to ourselves. We can be really hard on ourselves sometimes, and I know that probably goes for some of you. Most of you, all of you? Question. So it's really important to be mindful about how we talk to ourselves. Another great way to take care of your mental health is by helping other people. Getting outside, journaling, cleaning, organizing, clearing up clutter, and also setting goals for ourselves. So in the next slide, one of the things that we can do that could be really helpful is making a routine that incorporates both ways to nourish your mental health and your physical health. So you don't have to go like full bore all the time and be like, I've got to constantly be taking care of myself. Yes, constantly take care of yourself, but I'm not talking about a really regimented schedule. Find a way to maybe do 1 or 2 things that take care of your mental health, and do 1 or 2 things that take care of your physical health, and doing that daily. And lastly, if you feel like you're having trouble taking good care of yourself, I really encourage you to talk with a trusted adult, whoever that might be in your life. Times have been really hard, and kids and adults, people are feeling anxious. That may be you, that might have been you or your family at some point in the beginning. It might come in a wave, maybe you feel good, but at some point you're feeling anxious or worried. It's really important to talk with people and to let people know where you're at and what's going on. So that's a little bit about self-care. Thank you so much for inviting me today.
Thank you so incredibly much. Round of applause for Sierra. Thank you. We really appreciate that. Okay, so next up, we're really quickly going to talk about masks. So we have Karen, and then I also have some visuals. And we're going to talk a little bit about masks and why are they important and what do we do with them and what do they mean?
Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
I will be expeditious about this. So the question is, why do we wear masks? As you heard in the beginning with the little video we showed you, the coronavirus likes to live in people's bodies, and it particularly likes to be in your lungs, but also in your nose. And when you talk, or when you sing, or when you shout, or when you sneeze, little droplets always come out, whether or not you're infected. I'm sure you've all accidentally, when you've sneezed, you've got your hands a little wet, or if someone's talking, you've seen some droplets come out of their mouth. And this, now we know, actually has coronavirus in it if a person is sick. Those droplets, I'm gonna change here. Those droplets are of varying sizes, and this is just a diagram to show you that, depending on the size of the droplet, they can spread further or shorter, because I think this was one of the questions that people asked, was that the really large droplets fall to the ground really quickly, really light, smaller droplets float in the air a lot longer. With coronavirus, we know that they're of the size that they tend to go about 6 feet. That's about what we know right now. So the purpose of the mask is to help with the spread of what happens when the droplets leave a person's mouth. There are 2 types of masks that have been developed, or 2 purposes of having the mask. One is to protect yourself, and the other is to protect others. And so this is what has come up with. So in medical terms, originally they created what was called a surgical mask. This is an example of what a surgical mask looks like. And this was because we know that when a person is talking, the little droplets come out. And during surgery, when you were working on someone's wound, you didn't want to spit in their wound by accident. So hence they created a surgical mask. The purpose of that was actually to protect others. And that's what you're also talking about when we talk about these cloth masks. So you can see that when you're wearing this mask, your mask actually traps the particles that are coming out of your mouth and prevents it from going into the air with others. And we're going to show you a couple of masks. Do you want to show them before I talk about the others? I think I have to stop sharing my screen for them to see you. I have one more visual, but we'll come back to that. So that's what the surgical mask is. That is what the cloth mask that you might be making later is. And Jen, do you want to show the one you have there?
Absolutely. So one of the other things that we've heard a lot about, especially in our area when we had some wildfires over the past couple of years, is that these N95 masks, and there's a couple of different types of N95s. So this is the one that we're all mostly familiar with, right? You can see it says N95 near the bottom, and you can get them at like hardware stores and things like that. And so that's what a lot of people are looking for. Along as Karen showed, is that, you know, there's a lot of different types of fabric masks. Some people are sewing them. Some people are just using bandanas that they're pulling up or things like that. But the N95, a lot of people are talking about. And so this is the one that us in the general public have access to. And we've heard a lot about leaving these available for our essential workers and our healthcare workers. And that is really important. But there's also the super awesome kind of N95 mask that Karen has an example of that's still wrapped up, and those are fitted specialty per person. So they just can't go off, go buy one off the shelf. Somebody comes and they fit it very specialty to their face, and it's made just for them. And then it's kept in a special package. And Karen, if you want to show them yours and what that looks like, we're obviously leaving it in the package for everybody.
Yeah. So this is the other type of mask. So the other type of mask, as I was here, is there's the mask that you wear to trap the particles in to prevent it from spreading others. And then there's a special type of mask that's called an N95 mask that is to prevent the particle, that protects you, the wearer, as opposed to when you're wearing your cloth mask or your surgical mask, it's protecting others. And what that is it's made of a material that is so dense that things can't get through it. And so it was designed for preventing smoke inhalation. It was designed for preventing the inhalation of viruses and all of that. So again, it's the inward protection. The masks that you're going to make later are outward protection. So this here is an example, and again, it's in a plastic bag of what the surgical N95 mask is. This is a mask that has been specifically fitted for me. So they had to have me sit in a machine when I had this mask on, and they blew air and various things around it to make sure that no really tiny particles could get through, because this is for when I'm seeing patients who are highly infectious. So like when I'm seeing a tuberculosis patient. These masks are the ones that we're trying to preserve for the healthcare workers. They are very uncomfortable. When you've been wearing one for more than a half an hour, it's very hot and hard to breathe, but they help protect you. They're similar, but these are special ones for medical care workers. So the one that Jen just showed you, those are also good in protecting the wearer from the particles. It's disappearing into your wallpaper. The one thing I would want to say is that there are some masks like what Jen is showing you that are N95 masks that have a little exhalation valve on them so that when you breathe, it opens up so that air can come out. You don't want to be wearing those right now because that sort of defies the point of trying to protect other people. So the one Jen has is good, but make sure you don't have one with the valves on it. So again, the only point I would say is that when you're wearing the mask, and why we wear the mask are twofold. One is that there are certain masks you wear to protect yourself from it. But more importantly, the reason that we're asking you to wear a mask, whether or not it's a bandana, whether or not it's a cloth mask, when you go out in public, is preventing the droplets that you're breathing out or come out of your mouth when you're talking from exposing other people, because you could be not feeling well, you could be feeling fine and not know that you were infected. So what we want now everyone to do is to, when you're going to be in close contact with anyone in the public, make sure that you are wearing a mask. And so that's the messages that we've got going, and that's why Jen's going to teach you how to make masks now.
Awesome. Thank you so very much, Karen. To make a mask at home, and so those of you may may have collected the items that you need. And we're going to go ahead and we actually have Lena, a newly bridge cadet Girl Scout. Hi, Lena. She is going to show us how to make a mask. So if you have your supplies, you can go ahead and follow along. Go ahead, Lena.
Okay, okay. So supplies, we just have some hair ties. I have a lot of hair ties with me and a bandana. So we're going to start off with our bandana by folding it. So we're going to fold one side to the middle and the other side. So it's much smaller now and it can actually fit around your face. So now you have multiple layers, which is good because it really helps stop it. And then we're going to take your hair tie. You're going to take 2 hair ties. And you're going to put them around each side, just leaving enough fabric, to put around your mouth and nose. So about that much, just like that. And no need to like double twist the hair ties, because then we're going to take this, or you're going to take our ends and fold them into this little pocket that we made by folding our bandana on the first step. We're going to do that with both sides. So now that you've done that, you've basically made a mask. And then I like to, because these usually don't really fit me, so I like to daisy chain a few more hair ties onto it. Just about 2 more on each side. So then you can make it so it goes all the way around your head and really fits and doesn't fall off while you're wearing it. And now you have made an emergency mask.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Lena. We really appreciate you showing us how to make one out of the bandana and hair ties. And I'm sure a lot of people have bandanas and hair ties at home. So thank you so much. So for those of you who maybe like to sew or want to learn how to sew either by hand, there's also some fabric face masks that you can sew. I know Lena sewed a bunch. I've sewn several, and there's a couple of different. So if you're interested in doing that, you can just simply Google how to sew a face mask. And there's a couple of different patterns. This one's called a faux face mask, and it fits over like that. Or there's a really simple one that's just called a pleated face mask, and it's very similar to the one that Lena made. It's just sewn, and then we just use elastic. So we encourage you that if you haven't made one yet and you feel like that would be fun to do, go for it. And you can get lots of cool fabric and lots of cool bandanas to make fabric out of. All right, so thank you to everybody. So we covered, I think, 4 out of the 6 steps for the COVID badge today. So there's the last 2 that you need to do. So the first one is to complete a service project. It does not have to be COVID related. Some examples might be that maybe you can help sew some masks and provide them to your neighbors or to community workers. There's also the letter writing service project that I believe Jen shared with everybody on the Girl Scout Facebook page. So if you're not linked into the Girl Scout Facebook page, make sure you find us. Look for Petaluma Service SU number 108. And make sure to answer the questions before you join. That way we know to admit you. So those are 2 really great service projects. Those are not the only ones that you can do. You can do whatever is important to you during this time as a service project.
Another great one is to take a plastic bag as you go for a walk with your family and do a neighborhood cleanup.
That's an awesome idea. The second piece that you need to do is to bring something to bring your community together. but not in person, right? We don't want anybody, we want to be 6 feet apart. We don't want to bring people physically together. So some of the ideas that some of you guys may have already done actually is chalk your walk. As you go on a walk in your neighborhood with your family, write some really lovely messages to your neighbors, or maybe just even out in front of your house, put down a hopscotch or something for people who are walking through your neighborhood to do.
Those
You can
have
also do like a bear hunt or a Where's Waldo hunt. Those are really fun. You can also put up signs of kindness in your windows, right? Be happy, or maybe for any sort of holiday. Maybe it's like National Pizza Day. Put up a Happy National Pizza Day sign in your window. Those are all really great options to bring your community together. And then just a reminder for the troop leaders and or for the parents or adults, badge orders for this badge, right? This is does not include the badge, this workshop. The orders are due by tomorrow. So the link to order them was part of the Cheddar Up registration form, as well as I believe sent out with the confirmation. So make sure that you order your badges by tomorrow. And beyond that, once again, a huge thank you to all of our speakers today. We had Karen and Anna and Marie and Ida and Amanda. I think I got everybody. Oh, and Sierra, thank you so much for everybody for taking time out of your Sundays to come and speak to us today. And thank all of you for coming and spending some time with us. And we hope that you learned a lot. And we can't wait to see you when we can, socially distance and with our masks. So good night, Girl Scouts. Thank you so much.